Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Alembic Pharmaceuticals Limited to discuss the company's Q1 FY22 financial results. We have with us today from the management, Mr. Pranav Amin, Managing Director, Mr. Shaunak Amin, Managing Director, Mr. R.K. Baheti, Director Finance and CFO, Mr. Mitanshu Shah, Head Finance, Mr. Reshul Shah, Head Strategy, and Mr. Ajay Kumar Desai, Senior VP Finance. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. R.K. Baheti, Director Finance and CFO from Alembic Pharmaceuticals Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the first quarter results conference call. I'm sure you would have got the results by now. However, let me briefly take you through the numbers for the quarter ended 30th June 2021. During the quarter, our total revenue was flat at 1326 crores. EBITDA was 19% of sales. It stood at 254 crores. Pre-R&D EBITDA is 31% of sales. Profit before tax degrew 46% to rupees 199 crores, while after-tax profit degrew 45% to 165 crores. EPS for the quarter is rupees 8.37 per share for the quarter. This is versus 15.99 in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. We are withdrawing our EPS guidance for the year 21-22 on account of softness in US business due to additional competition, which has led to price erosion as well as delay in FDA inspections of our facilities. CapEx for the quarter is 124 crores. Cumulative CapEx for ongoing projects under CWIP, including the pre-operative, is rupees 1,892 crores. Financial assistance to Aleor JV for the quarter is 55 crores. Borrowings. The gross borrowing at consolidated level is rupees 500 crores. Essentially, these are long-term debentures. And the company has rupees 273 crores as cash on hand. So the net borrowing is 227 crores. Net debt equity is negligible at 0.04. I will now hand over the discussion to Pranav for his presentation on the international business.
Thank you, Mr. Baheti. As you are all aware, the US business has, over the last 5 years, had an exceptional growth. We had a massive, very impressive CAGR rate. A lot of this growth was on the back of the Sartan opportunity. We're very lucky that it lasted much longer than we had anticipated, as well as other market-based disruptions. The early part of last year also threw up additional opportunities due to COVID-related disruptions. So hence, it was a challenging quarter. This was a challenging quarter on account of intense competition in the market. Our long-term view of the US business still remains bullish. We will do minor strategy tweaks in the meantime because of the additional competition that we're seeing in the US market. The ex-US ROW business continues to do well and grew at 13% during the quarter. Just to refresh your memories, this is a business that had impressive growth last year because of the year before that when we had serialization. The API business also continues to do really well and grew at 6% during the quarter. This was pretty good, considering that last year Q1 was a lot of growth in azithromycin and some of these other APIs where there was a lot of disruptions from China due to COVID. Our R&D expense was 167 crores in the quarter, which is approximately 13% of sales. We received 7 approvals, launched 2 products. We have cumulatively 146 ANDA approvals. This includes 18 tentative. And we plan to launch around 5 products in the second quarter. The international formulation business degrew by 27% to 566 crores for the quarter, and the US generics degrew by 38% to 369 crores for the quarter. Ex-US generics grew 13% and API grew 6%. I will now hand over the business to Shaunak, the discussion to Shaunak for the India business.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. For the quarter, we saw a nice ramp up in our India business despite challenges related to COVID. The overall business grew by 57%. Between the three key segments, the specialty grew by 29%, acute grew by 122%, and veterinary will continue to outperform, grew by 45% in Q1. There was some amount of COVID-related challenges in the market and for the non-acute portfolio, and definitely there was some amount of pickup which was due to the sharp uptick in cases. I think the net effect of both put together, I think we did pretty well, keeping both things in mind. Our specialty business grew despite all the lockdowns which affect the business from a long-term point of view. So I think we managed to control the business and make it grow in this quarter. Like I say, I think at this point in time, our India business, we see enough pockets of growth across the portfolio, both in the acute specialty as well as veterinary side of it. We continue to perform. We're very confident of the business. There, we still foresee some COVID-related disturbances to happen in the market maybe next quarter. Hopefully, it should be much less, but I think we've come to terms with how to manage these ups and downs in the businesses and as well as how to manage the business in the period of lockdowns. What is helping the business is the high vaccination rate among doctors is definitely giving a positive impact to the business despite the lockdowns. We are quite bullish on the business and we continue to look at, tap these opportunities for growth. We look to, scale up parts of our business, but we have to be mindful of, the pandemic-related challenges at this point in time. So keeping the two, we are committed to growing the business, and I think we see good opportunities to invest additionally into this business and make it grow. So now I'd like to open the floor for Q&A.
Thank you very much. So we'll now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question, please press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sriram Rathi from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So firstly, on US market, like last quarter, we were expecting that $55 to $60 million will be normal run rate. Now we are around 50. So is it purely because of higher competition? And at the same time, is the impact of competition in theophylline is also into this number?
Yeah, so this is pretty much only due to additional competition in the US, nothing else. We were seeing this trend moving forward. Theophylline happened, we haven't seen the full effect of theophylline because that happened towards the end of Q1, but that will happen as well moving forward to Q2. Yes, I think we were expecting a higher run rate, and I still hope that we'll get to this 55 kind of run rate moving forward. We're doing some fine tweaks, but yeah, bulk of it is due to cost, due to pricing pressure in the market.
Okay. So in that case, theophylline can have additional impact in Q2 and the number can be more or less around this number or maybe lower.
So what will happen is two things. One is where on the volume side, we haven't seen too much change on the volume side. Maybe Q1, a little bit of an impact on volumes, but we're picking up new awards, we're getting more business. We're working on some cost rationalization in-house. So I think hopefully with those things, we'll be able to pick up more business moving forward in Q2, Q3 to counter for what we'll see additional competition in Theophylline and some of the other ones.
Okay, got it. Thanks for that. And one on the gross margin side, like this quarter we are around 71%. So now, I mean, will we say that, I mean, this is more of the normalized number now that should be there going forward?
Yeah, so we've been saying that because when we had these margins of 78, 79%, I was always, making a cautious statement that yes, they will come down. These were part of those high prices we could get during those disruptions. Don't know. I mean, this is a direct number depending on so India prices are static. India cost also remain more or less static. Some increase in API prices, but not significant. So it depends on at what prices do we get to sell in US. That will determine the gross margin number.
Okay, got it. Is there any update on the Karkhadi unit? I mean, after we got the observations and any progress on that?
No, I think nothing since the last quarter when we spoke. Same, we've just been back and forth with the FDA. We're just waiting to hear from them. So let's see, hopefully in the next couple of months, what stand they take.
Okay, got it. Thanks for that. I'll join the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Damayanti Keria. Please go ahead. Damayanti Keria, may I request you to please unmute yourself if muted from your handset?
You can take the next question and come back to Damayanti once he is back.
Yes, sir. We'll move to the next question, which is from the line of Prakash Agarwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
So technical
I think there's
in
some
the conference.
issue from your side. Maybe people are not able to speak or...
Let me just check, sir. Please give me a moment.
Please.
Mr. Prakash Agarwal, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, and good evening to all. My first question is on the 50 rupee EPS guidance that we had given. Is there any thought there? Do we maintain it, or how to think about it, given the first quarter has been a little weak?
Yeah, so maybe Prakash, you might have missed the opening statement. Mr. Baheti said that we're withdrawing this guidance due to a lot of uncertainty that we're seeing and some softness in the US market. So he said that in the opening statement. So we're not...
Okay. But is there any revised guidance for the same?
No, I think right now, due to the dynamic situation, we'd rather refrain from giving any guidance.
Okay, understood. And, on the gross margin, somebody asked, but I mean, if I see my sales mix has gone favorable, right? So India piece is higher versus last quarter Q4 numbers. And US in the last quarter only we said that, that certain opportunity is going or fading away. And despite that, we have seen another $15 million decline. So, what has really happened Q&Q in the US from Q4 to Q1? And B, despite India business moving up, our gross margins, so is that everything sitting in that $15 million, which had a very high profitability? Would that be correct, or what? How should we think about it?
Yeah, I think the right way of looking at it is, as I'm saying, like the volumes haven't moved as much for the US market. So pretty much what we've seen is on account of pricing.
Okay, so these are now the realistic, or do we expect one more round on this, or this is on the base level portfolio, there is no, special pricing on these products?
So I just, as I mentioned, it's very difficult. It's too dynamic. That's why we're not giving a guidance. And I don't know because it's not in our hand. It really depends how the competition is in the market. So I'll refrain from giving any guidance on that.
Okay. No, because last quarter we heard you saying that you have visibility of 10 plus products, both in oral, derms, etc. And we also expect in second half with the US FDA inspection obviously happening, second half onwards, maybe there is a injectable business coming back on stream.
So I'll tell you what. So basically, near term, we will see some challenges. I think I don't know how much and to what extent, whether this is the new normal or what is going to happen. Long term, our view of the U.S. business is still intact. Long term, I believe we should be okay, and I'm still quite bullish on the U.S. market.
And that 10 plus launches remain?
Yeah, that will remain. I think more probably closer to 15.
Okay. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anmol Ganchu from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. A slight reiteration of what got asked by the earlier participant. So if you look at the US, there are 2-3 vectors. One is the product launches on which, we obviously seem to be holding what we had articulated earlier, 10 plus product launches.
Yeah.
Second is that, that if you look at last quarter commentary with respect to sartan pricing, and we all know these things tend to undershoot once competition sets in. So that obviously has happened. So I don't think there's a real surprise. So why, therefore, a view that despite domestic formulations doing well and, the suspension of guidance, what's the real directional surprise during the quarter? That's what I wanted to understand because everything else obviously seems not very different from what we understood last quarter. And is there anything which kind of, has incrementally worsened with respect to landscape?
Yeah. So
conservative.
Yeah. So I'll just give a brief, then I'll let Mr. Baheti add whatever else. So why the withdrawal is, Anmol, because few things have happened. One is, as I said, from the last quarter also to now, we've seen an incremental lot of erosion in prices in the U.S. market, number one. Number two, we're seeing that we're not seeing any guidance from the FDA in terms of when they're going to come, what they're going to do. And the third is, as you all know, there's been incremental competition in theophylline, timolol, some of these other products which are big products. So there's a lot of unknown or uncertainties in the market. So hence we were not comfortable with the guidance. So that's the reason why we've removed it. As I mentioned earlier, long term, we are still quite intact. I'm just going to veer off for a second before I get back to Mr. Baheti on the guidance. I sense that there will be a lot of questions on the US business in today's call. Well, let me just give a flavor on what kind of things we are doing or what we are in the midst of doing. As you know, Alembic has actually captured a lot of high-priced opportunities due to disruptions in the market. The market has changed now, as everyone is back on supplies and there's not really any disruptions. So we're doing a lot of cost cutting, cost reduction, supply chain volume growth, picking up business, bidding for new businesses, and I think we will see the effects of that Q4 definitely, Q3 definitely, but maybe Q2 also, as we're picking up some volumes, we're picking up some business, we're rationalizing some R&D spend, we're rationalizing our other expenses as well. So that's what the strategy is moving forward because those high-priced opportunities are not there. So there's a lot of stuff in the system that we're trying to correct. Mr. Baheti, on the guidance, if you want to.
No, I think you have covered.
Yeah. Yeah. Anmol, anything else?
Yeah. So briefly, two more quick questions from my side. So now, obviously, this quarter the competition has overshot expectations, and we seem to be stabilizing at around a $200 million annualized run rate on the base. Sartans ideally should have worn off. So incrementally, I don't think that the portfolio is vulnerable to sartan pricing at least. Theophylline, again, if what has happened this quarter is anything to go by, the risk should be on margins, not as much on volume. So I think with a lot of these things happening, which were expected as you highlighted, then $200 million plus the launch rate of new products, that is how we should be budgeting for the US growth on a full year basis. Is that correct in terms of assessment?
If you extrapolate from this quarter, yeah, that could. But again, there's too many unknowns. That's why I don't want to give a guidance on the number.
Okay. And second question is on the domestic formulations. Good show there, guys. So, obviously that's been very impressive. But if you look at the drivers, is this the new normal, or you think that, there will be a lot of work required to stabilize it to this number? And, again, as one of the earlier participants highlighted, the domestic growth at this rate should obviously be able to buffer the margin dilutive developments in the U.S. market, although it's still of a very high base. But, with domestic coming back, both from a cash flow perspective as well as a mix perspective, how should we be extrapolating it going forward in terms of drivers?
Sure. So I would request Shaunak to respond to the business environment part, and then I'll take the financial numbers.
Yeah, Anmol, so that I think, honestly, like the market is so dynamic, I think with the lockdowns play a large part in what could happen to the business. Like I said, ex-acute, or rather ex-azithromycin, the portfolio has performed fairly well, which gives me a level of confidence that, a part of this is sustainable. There might be quarters where they get up and down, but broadly we feel the momentum is sustainable. Obviously, not the acute part of the portfolio, ex-azithral has performed exceptionally well. I think we're fairly confident that we can maintain. Obviously, a lot of the growth is linked to market growth, and a lot of the market growth, at a very macro level, is linked to GDP, is linked to disposable income, good monsoon we've seen. So there are a lot of factors that play into it. As long as the market does perform, I think we're fairly confident of outperforming the market on a sustainable basis. Is this number at 57% growth sustainable for every quarter? Like I said, it's all a lot of this is determined by things that are out of my control, which is a market movement. So as long as the market stays positive, there's no major slowdown in the market at an overall level. I think we are, like I said, we will be, like I've been consistently saying, I think we're fairly confident about outperforming the market in all of our key therapeutic segments as well as all our key products. And so I think that's the outlook at this point.
Yeah. Hi, Shaunak, if I may just kind of, scratch that a bit more. So if you look at the, growth that we've had, obviously, market has done well, but there must clearly be, if the ex-azithromycin portfolio has done well, then there have to be market share gains elsewhere, given the big lead we'll have this quarter over the rest of the market. So just trying to understand, are there any drivers of market share gains in this quarter?
Yes, there are market share gains. Like I said, I think one quarter is too small a period to start tracking market share gains. I don't want to get into quarterly market share gains because the market is, as we know, IMS, even in this period, I think the IMS data collection was affected or gets affected when there are pandemics and lockdowns. So yes, there have been market share gains, but I don't want to, like I said, we need to see at least 2 quarters of market share gains for us to really come out and say that yes, there's been large market share gains.
Thank you. Thanks.
But we have grown faster than the market. If that I think we've substantially outgrown the market in all the segments. So I think that is there, which I said in my opening statements.
Yeah. Thanks. That's helpful, Shaunak.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shivan MS from JHP Securities Private Limited. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Three questions from my side. Broadly, sir, you said that the long term is pretty intact. From that perspective, considering that we've completed most of our CapEx and once it starts getting commercialized, where do we see the US business, the potential of that CapEx to kind of drive our US business? Like, what would be the top line that one can expect? Is it in the $500 to $600 million range? Based on history and your experience, when does a particular plant reach its maximum capacity utilization once the approvals are with us? So that's my first question. The second one is regarding our gross profit margin. Mr. Baheti did mention about the gross margin, but just reconfirming that if I go back to my notes, he had said that a broad range of 70 to 72% is what we normally would be confident of doing. So does that still hold? And the last one was on the modified opinion that we've got in terms of accounting for the debentures. So if you could just give a color in a layman's language that why have we not gone through not followed the accounting standard guidance and taken a differentiated stand. So that's it from me.
Let Pranav respond to the first question. I will respond to the next two questions.
Yeah, sure. So our long-term view, as I mentioned, it still stays intact in terms of our what we see the market where it's going. Yes, maybe a couple of quarters a year, here or there, it may change due to the delay in FDA inspection and approvals. But by and large, it stays there. We haven't given a long-term guidance. I've mentioned in the past that companies of similar size and what they went, we should look at about 400 odd million kind of sales revenue in moving forward by 24, 25. So that still stays intact. In terms of, I think the other part was on the capacities and when do we expect. You want to take that, Jason?
Yeah. So basically, as you know, the whole approval process, does take some time. We have made filings from these facilities. Now, depending on when the FDA really comes for inspection and all of that, it will take some time before we get approvals for meaningful products. And these assets have been built, keeping long term in mind. So there's a whole bunch of products that will keep getting filed over the next few years. And as we file those products, more and more turnover can come through from the same facilities. So from a long term point of view, when you ask the question, when do we see peak sales? So I think, it will take about 5-7 years before we see some peak sales coming from these plants. Just based on the filings and the approval timelines and stuff like that.
Okay, and if I may just add, when we talk about peak sales, so my question was, what could that be based on your experience on a similar asset in another company, or what your internal assessment would when you would have expended this capex? What is the peak sales that this particular asset can give? So the current block.
So, see, basically, generic business, we've been saying that there is a lot of uncertainty. But having said that, overall, if you look across the sector, the general sales to fixed asset ratio, if you look at, it's in the ballpark of about 1.5 to 2 times. And we should be aiming to achieve similar numbers over the long-term period.
Okay.
But again, these are very broad numbers, so please don't
yes.
too many quantitative determinations from here. We're just giving kind of a direction.
Sure. I get that.
Coming back on that modified opinion, I think this is a policy which we have been following consistently. This is in respect of Aleor. So Aleor doesn't make provision for interest, nor do Alembic Pharma makes income. Nor does Alembic Pharma recognize the income, because as per the JV agreement, the interest will be payable by Aleor only when it starts making. There are some conditions which have to be met. So as of date, those conditions are still some time away, and that's how we have not made. Actually, on a consolidated basis, it doesn't make much difference except that partners' share of loss will go up a bit, but as far as cash flow is concerned and as the other operations are concerned, it doesn't impact us because accounts get consolidated. And on your margin question, yes, I mean, I've been saying this, and margin is again, as I said, factor of how sales prices are, realizations are, they behave, and it would depend on that.
Okay. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abdul Qadir Puranwala from Anand Rathi. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the opportunity. Just one question from my end. So if I just look from a standalone to console basis, the profit number looks quite lower. So I understand this could be partially because of the US business, but at a $50 million or a $55 million on a quarterly run rate, would the US business still be profitable for us?
Yeah, it is still profitable. The only thing, as we have been mentioning, is that ROC has come down, but otherwise it's still profitable, obviously.
All right. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you. The next question from the line of Raj Seri from Equirus Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. So just wanted to understand on the gross margin part, given that during this quarter we had some benefit because of domestic business being higher, as well as COC line complete impact has not been there. So do you see that the gross margins can further correct from the current levels of 72%, 71%? Or this is the rate which we can take?
Very difficult to predict, but what we are doing, I mean, what is in our hand, what we are doing, we are looking at more efficiencies in procurement. See, last couple of years, our focus has been on making the goods available. Okay, so the pricing was secondary because that's how the US was getting operated. Now we are looking at all round efficiency improvement. So we think we have reached to a number which is sustainable.
Right. And sir, from the perspective of other expenses, we have seen a sharp increase sequentially, despite being a case where the overall promotion activities have been subdued. So what was the key reason for that?
So the other expenses, I mean, I think a large portion of other expenses are not related to the US business. The large portion of other expenses relates to domestic market. You know, last year, domestic market expenses were very muted because of a very strict lockdown throughout. This year, markets have opened up, so we have spent more on promo, we have spent more on field travels, and all the field related activities. So it's again, it's closer to the normal reality.
So is it a number we can work ahead with, that this number will continue? So will it be more like a base for us?
In domestic market, you know, the expenses are never uniform in all quarters. There will be some quarters where there will be a high expenses on promo, and then there will be some quarters where those investments will be swept. So it depends on marketing strategy, but I think broadly 20-30 crore here or there, these numbers should stay.
Sure, sir. And sir, last one, on the US business side, so we are saying that we are going to see around 15 launches a year. So, 15 launches a year. So does it mean that by fiscal end, we will be returning back to the guidance of 55 million, which we have guided for as an exit run rate for the US market?
No, it's actually I have not guided. I have not given a guidance on the 55 million sales. I think I just mentioned in the last call that what we were seeing typically about 65 to 70 million, that is coming down because we were seeing a trend of a lower, more price erosion. That's all. That's how the number came around.
Right. But Pranav, in your assessment, can we go back to around $55 million run rate by the fiscal end as an exit run rate?
So, you know, I responded this to the earlier question as well, you know. If you want to extrapolate from this quarter, you can look at a 50 million odd, but it's very tough to say, and that's one of the reasons we have withdrawn the guidance is I'm seeing a lot of, it's a very dynamic market. I'm seeing more competition. I'm seeing what's happening. So I really don't know. I think for a couple of quarters to see where it settles down in order to give a formal opinion of where I feel the market will be.
Sure, that's helpful, and best of luck for future quarters.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nobin from Falcon Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi. My question is around the U.S. business model itself. Looking at your history, it seems you've generally made profits when there's some sort of a structural issue or your first day of filing or something of that sort. So in a normal way, the U.S. market doesn't allow you to make much profits at all, simply. And the fact that this competition has come up is no surprise. It's going to keep happening, right? Because that's the way the FDA wants it. It wants all these suppliers to kill themselves literally and get the medicines at the lowest cost. So what makes this business model good in your view? And why are you talking about it?
So first of all, I think the U.S. market for us, I don't know what the others in the market, but for us it has always remained profitable and still is profitable. I think since inception it's always been profitable, so I don't see any issue there per se. In terms of the FDA, I really can't comment on that, what they want. But what makes this market still attractive and why are we still attracted to it, or why do we keep making investments in it, is because of a few reasons. One, the addressable market size is very big. There are opportunities to make money in the U.S. market, and they continually throws that up. If you look at us over the last 5 years, we've grown at a CAGR of over 25%, and every quarter has been profitable on that. And that, so I think it's a good market. The addressable market size is big. Compared to the other international markets, I think it's a bit better market because it's easier to do your own front end in the market. So that's what we feel about the U.S. market.
No, I agree you have made profits, but if you look behind the profits, there's been a reason behind it, right? The sartan is completely because of supply constraint, right? It was not run-of-the-mill business. It's not business as usual. I mean, it's like a commodity, right? When there's supply constraints.
What you have to understand is that is how the U.S. market is. There are continuing disruptions. But even if you take the disruptions out, it's still a profitable business. You look at us, you look at some of our peers in the industry. There is still a lot of profit to be made,
Oh, well, could you explain more of your conviction why you think that way? Because it hasn't happened that way. Because the price erosion immediately sets in.
No, why I'm saying is it's not, it has happened that way. So we see our history, what we've Alembic or our U.S. business, it's always been profitable for us. And I still think it's a great market. There are a lot of opportunities to make money if you do the business right, you get the right prices. And I think the industry's seen that. We've seen across the board with every Indian pharmaceutical industry as well.
You're making all these investments and you don't know what the pricing is going to be. You don't know how many competitors are going to enter. So isn't that a big risk?
No, I don't think so. I think that's just the way the industry is. You have to find the opportunities. You have to ensure the variables that you take care of, be it the supply chain, be it your sourcing, be it your marketing front end. That's there. There's no business with 100% certainty. If there was, let me know and I'll get in on it.
Okay. Thank you, Priya.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Abhishek Jain from Arihant Capital. Please go ahead.
Sir, 2 questions. First question, how India business is doing out right now, post-COVID things are opening up right now. If you can throw some color on this thing, especially on the acute therapy portfolio, how the things are shaping up. And ex-azithromycin, if you can throw some light, see what is the growth number for India business, if you can throw some light on the same, sir. And third question, what is the capex guidance? Are you maintaining your 1,000 crore capex guidance for next 2 years? And if you can...
Shaunak, you take the India business first?
Yeah, just to get clarity, asking for a Q2 guidance number.
No, I'm not. How the things are shaping up. I don't need numbers and all these things. I just, how the trends are there right now in last 1 month, if you can throw some light.
So you want Q2 numbers basically? Yeah, so market is still opening up, so I think we're in a state of seeing the markets just open up gently. I think it's too premature to make any large statements. I don't want to get into giving absolute numbers for Q2 when we are in the middle of the quarter. But yeah, as you're aware, the cases have come down. So I think with cases coming down and I think some amount of markets opening up, I think there's some amount of normalcy coming back into the market. So I think that's what we're seeing at this point.
And to your other part of the question, ex-azithromycin also, the entire the other non-azithromycin portfolio as well as cough and cold portfolio has done exceedingly well in the first quarter. Abhishek?
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Please take the next question.
There is no response from the line of Nitin Agarwal. We'll move to the next question. It's on the line of National Connection from Engagers. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. Sir, just one question. So you sound very cautious on the US business, and we all know that the competition typically leads to price erosion. But apart from that, in molecules which have not seen incremental competition, has that been also affected by the price erosion, or the pricing has remained stable on those, and just the one who has incremental competition, there we have seen price erosion?
So generally there has been competition across product profile. The most intense competition, of course, was in sartan, where the prices have come down. But we are seeing that in other products also.
Which have not seen any incremental competition in this quarter?
There is nothing which I can find that there is no incremental competition.
Selectively, we've taken price increases also where it was possible. But in general, yes, it is sartans which had an impact on current quarter.
Okay, sure. Because I think the cautiousness that you have shown seems to be like there is some structural change. Even the products which have not seen competition might also be facing price competition. So that's price erosion. So that's why.
I think
it's.
Yeah, I think the competition is across the board, across everywhere in the US.
No, that is there, but within the portfolio also, there will be some products which would not have seen incremental competition and their pricing has remained stable, or there also, because sometimes when the wholesaler consolidation happens without incremental competition, also price erosion happens.
Yeah, some products there was no erosion and some there was.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tushar Manudhane from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Sir, with this sartan price easing, just to understand, top 3 products would be contributing how much for US sales now?
I don't think we do.
I don't have that breakup.
I don't think we do product.
I said, it keeps changing every quarter. It keeps changing every quarter. It's tough to say. Typically, I think with the way the industry is 20%, top 20%, or is something about like 80% of sales. That's what the industry figures are, but we don't give because it's too dynamic.
Okay, and just on R&D spend with 160 for the quarter, how much to look for FY22 full year?
So we've not given a guidance, but I'm assuming it'll get close to 650-700 crores kind of level annually.
Okay, sir. Got you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishal Manchanda from Nirmal Bang Institutional Equities. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. My question pertains to the API business. So wanted to understand whether the current run rate can sustain for rest of the year.
So, as I mentioned in last few quarters, the API business had a phenomenal growth last year. And a lot of the growth last year was due to the COVID-related disruptions. So having said that, this quarter they've done well. I expect them to be close to, this 5-7%, up to 10% growth is where we look at for this year for the API business.
Okay. And the second is in the US, we have also seen volume share loss in case of famotidine. So is it on account of some manufacturing disruption, or is it on account of competition So there, as I understand, there was significant market share loss in that product category.
Yeah, I think it would be probably just pricing pressure, or we may have backed off, but there's nothing related to manufacturing.
Okay. And would you kind of can you give a sense on the A&D approvals that you expect this year? Some sense on per A&D revenue number. Is that possible for you to estimate?
No, it's very, very, very tough to give that, and I wouldn't be comfortable with that kind of a guidance because it's too dynamic. Who's going to launch, how many people launch, what the competitive intensity will be. It's tough to predict.
So, if not that, maybe what value of the market, what market opportunity do these A&Ds represent in terms of the brand sales or the market, overall market, including generics?
We can take this offline. I'll just ask the IR team to get in touch with you. I don't have that figure with me right now.
Okay. Thanks. That's all from us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ranveer Singh from Sunidhi Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. So my question pertains to India business. We see from low base last year in Q1, now we have seen a very good growth here. But I see that the quarterly run rate has come up better than now pre-COVID level. So my question is whether that kind of growth, I mean that kind of run rate, it's sustainable going forward, or internally what should I take growth, especially in acute segment? So what kind of growth you see from here onward?
So like I said, I think operationally we are, we feel we're definitely pre-COVID levels. We need to be at that. As long as the market doesn't shut down, I mean, if we go into one more 6-month lockdown, then I think I can't tell you what's going to happen to the business because, lockdowns impact the business. Keeping in mind that things don't go haywire and market stays stable, I think the basic issues with good monsoon and GDP growth and rural income, things like that stay in line. I think as long as the market behaves correctly, I think we're fairly confident of showing strong growth in all our businesses going forward. And this growth should be in excess of represented market growth, both for acute as well as specialty, as well as vet.
Okay, fine. And secondly, on API side, whether we have seen price erosion in certain API also?
So, there's the erosion in sartans has been across the board. It's not a big API component for us, so it's tough to say, I think. The more so the pricing that we saw was on the formulation side in the US, not as much on the API side. API was a supply availability which caused the formulation prices to go up, and also we're not large players at an API side.
Okay. And where we are, what's the status of oncology injectable facility? So have we started filing from this facility?
Yeah, we've started filing from this facility. We're doing batches and we'll be filing. And then we'll await FDA inspection for the injectable.
So for this, we may...
So can we take your question again? I mean, can you come in to follow up?
Yes, sir. Just a related question that in oncology injectable, just I wanted to understand if we are awaiting for US FDA inspection or US FDA clearance. So meanwhile, are we selling anything to non-US market from these new facilities?
No.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ravi Kumar, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Pass on. I think all my questions are answered.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nimish Mehta from Research Delta Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Just one more understanding on the domestic business. The overall market, if I understand, has grown by about 50% in the month of April and May. and it came down to almost 14, that is 14% in the month of June. So are we as a company also seeing a similar proportionate decline in June, or is it still much better than the market?
Means whatever you are quoting from as number, we are also covered. If you look at our numbers also from there. So because you are comparing IMS number with our primary numbers, or whatever source you are quoting, our numbers are also available.
Okay, but I don't have that granular. So if you can tell me right away, that will be helpful.
You are very smart.
Okay.
But I think we are, as Shaunak said, we have been outperforming market, but then the trend continues.
I just add to that. I think, what you're saying, IMS reflection in April, May versus June, definitely there was a IMS slowdown, which we also saw. But like I said, we outperformed the market. I think the slowdown is more to do with, lockdowns. I think peak of lockdowns always slows the business down. And I think we're seeing that when lockdowns happen, I think 3, 4, 5 weeks into the lockdown, everything starts to slow down just because basic movement slows down, or people moving in and out. I think practices slow down, football slow down. So we see a lag of the lockdowns coming in. So, but that is it. I think, but going forward, I think, like I said, I think markets have opened up largely now. So we're seeing a more normalization level of movement. So, and I think the monsoons have been good also this year. So that gives a boost to our cough and cold and acute business.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to know, have we capitalized any expenses with regards R&D of Aleor and operational expenses of facilities not commercialized? And if yes, how much is that? Thank you.
We have capitalized R&D of Aleor, and when we put the product, once we get the approval and we put to use, then we amortize those expenses. You can get the numbers in the March 21 balance sheet. It is around 200 odd crores.
I'm talking about this quarter. What would that number be? That plus the operational expenses that we capitalize. What would that number be for this quarter?
So for Alembic Pharma, it is around 70 odd crores, which is a pre-op expenses, and Aleor would be a small portion, around 10 odd crores.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Agarwal from DAM Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Shaunak, on the US, I see we've been spending almost 600 crores on R&D for the last 3 years now, 2 or 3 years now. I mean, when do you see some of these higher R&D spends sort of culminating into maybe relevant, meaningful launches versus which can move the needle from a revenue contribution perspective?
Sorry, so your question is the R&D expenditures that we have been incurring, where do we see meaningful launches from these?
The monetization of that R&D expenditure, by what time frame do we see it? What time frame onwards and we see the monetization of that beginning to come?
So you're asking for amortization of R&D expenditure or
monetization of that R&D spend in terms of results of that R&D spend that you've done for the last 3-4 years? Over what time period do we see the results really showing up from by way of launches on the R&D from the spend?
Sure. Yeah. So actually, as you know, the approval time frame for after we file is close to about 2 to 3 years. So as and when these products keep on getting approvals, we will be able to commercialize, and as we commercialize, you will see revenues coming in, and and therefore the resultant gross profit. So I think this is a continuous kind of an effort. So we keep spending money, and as and when the approvals come through, we will keep on monetizing. So the amounts that we have spent in the last, let's say 3-4 years, you will see monetization of it for the next 5 to 7 years in the minimum.
Right. And have they been just in the way the market dynamics have really changed over the last 2 or 3 years? Have there been a significant number of projects where probably where the dynamics for your own estimates have changed meaningfully versus versus what you thought of when you were probably investing in those projects? Or there are like very few instances like that?
Yeah, so obviously dynamics keep on changing, and we keep on monitoring the market dynamics on almost on a monthly basis. So we look at where the products are, how much investments have been made, how much yet to be made, what is the complexity of the product, and how many new players are emerging. So it's so many factors we keep on looking on a real-time basis. And wherever we feel that the competition has changed in a dramatic way, when we are in early stages of development, we kind of take a call and kind of cull those products. So basically, we actually monitor this on a very active basis and maintain the discipline of ensuring that the products which are in the grid are expected to generate the required rate of return.
Just lastly on that, in your experience, rather in your assessment over the last 3 or 4 years, opportunities like these where you can make probably higher than average revenue per product, have those opportunities become difficult to come by, or there's still enough and more opportunities like these around?
Yeah. So traditionally, the generic business, as you know, and you can also see the number of filings that the industry is making. That data is available in public domain. You can see a number of ANDAs have been filed over the last maybe 7-8 years. And so that's very clear situation for not just for us, but for the entire industry, that you have a number of products getting filed. Having said that,
I think it's better we take this call offline, yes, sir, because I think we're talking of basic nuts and bolts of our business, which I think is
strategy.
Okay,
sure.
Nitin, Jason Mikanshu will be in touch with you offline.
Sure.
Can take one last question because we are just running out of time.
Thank you. This will be the last question, which is from the line of Vinit Gala from Monarch Network. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Thanks for taking my question. So on the derma part of the business, that is Aleor JV, we've seen decent number of approvals. Can you throw some light in terms of the profitability and pricing part? Also, given the investments we made in this asset, when do we expect it to start contributing meaningfully?
So, sir, no, you are right that we have got a lot of approvals, but unfortunately, it's not great commercial opportunity at this moment because of intense competition. We have started supplying, we have launched the products, we are talking to customers for getting better market share. We are also looking at optimizing the capacity utilization. So all those efforts we are doing, but I think for the size of operations we have, it will take a while to really make that venture profitable.
Fair enough. So is there any kind of payback period in our mind because significant investments have gone in this asset?
So the payback period, what we had in our mind when we invested has really got extended. And but again, when you are in pharma, particularly in generic pharma, you have to be a little patient and wait for the right opportunity, because 2 opportunities in a year and you can have the entire calculation back on track. So we are waiting patiently at this moment.
Fair enough, sir. So last question from my side. So qualitatively, most of the approvals that we've been getting are relatively smaller opportunities and seem to be very well contested, like the recent approvals I'm talking about. And given the R&D spends...
Sorry, go ahead.
Given the R&D spends we've seen, so these are relatively less attractive kind of approvals in OSD. So can you please articulate your thought process?
You are talking of derma or other approvals?
OSDs.
Okay. Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, so actually, we have a portfolio of products. So, some of these products, like I said, that, we keep on looking at competition, and some of these products, competition may have increased by the time we got approval. So you're seeing that. But it's going to be a mix of products. So, we've had opportunities in the past, and we continue to believe that we will have opportunities in the future.
Okay, fair enough, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Vinit. So I think we have completely run out of time, and I would take this opportunity to thank all of you to have been actively associated with us, participated in our calls, asking relevant questions, keeping us on our toes, and we look forward to continuing interaction with you. Anyone still has some questions can always get back to us offline. Mitanshu, Ajay are always available. Me, Pranav also on request. So I will close my comments with big thank you to all of you. Thanks. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Alembic Pharmaceuticals Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now connect your lines.